place to get this discussion going. So where did you start with these characters and this story? I mean, people ask me what this is like. I said it's sort of like Trailer Park Tennessee Williams with a dash of Grand Guignol.
It's an amalgam of. Am I alive here? No. These mics. No, but I don't. Is yours working?
It's, who can tell where it comes from? It's based on a true story about a murderous Florida family. I changed a lot of the details. It's the first play I'd written. I wrote it with some actors in mind. It was supposed to be sort of purpose-built for a single set and some younger actors to do. It also, I'm sure, was exercising some demons or something. I was... now I look at it, it's strange. It's 20 years since I wrote the thing, and so now it's very strange. It's like looking at a fever dream you had a long time ago. It's a very odd experience seeing that.
The family unit seems to sort of be something you keep coming back to. Unusual family units. What else is there? Can you say something about your own background? Because I read once that you described your own childhood as being the town from the Last Picture Show, without character, in color, and filled with Republicans.
That's kind of the town I came from. There was a small college in the town I came from, and my folks were both English teachers there. So, I grew up with English teachers, and yet, so our house was kind of bunkered a bit in a town like that. I didn't really fit into a town of 12,000 people in southeastern Oklahoma. It wasn't a great fit for me.
What is?
Chicago. Well, I know.
And clearly this is the second film you've made after Bug from one of Tracy's plays. How did you discover his work, and what drew you to it and drew you back to it?
I think I'll need this mic. This one's not working. This one's dead. Anyone need a mic? Doesn't work. I just think that we've said this before. Tracy and I have the same worldview. I saw this play Bug, and I thought it was really unique, brilliant, very disturbing. What? Hello? Yeah. Very dark, but also very real. And that's how I feel about everything I've seen of his that he's written. What's all those voices? Hey, did you bring the Zac Brown band or something? Are they? There's a bunch of voices. Every time I say something, I hear a choir up there. Maybe it's a Johnny Cash song, when the man comes around. But there's something going on that's weird up there. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. Look, you don't see stuff like what Tracy writes everywhere. You don't get scripts like that. You can't commission somebody to do that. He has a totally unique and original voice that I respond to.
I don't want to box you out, Gavin.
Well, I would actually like to ask a couple of questions of Matthew and Gina. First of all, Matthew, this year you've appeared in a number of films, some haven't come out yet, in which you've played characters who definitely have a much darker side than perhaps people are used to associating with you as an actor. And this character is clearly one of the darkest. I wonder if you could share with us what your insights are into a character like this and how you get yourself into a place where you can really inhabit that kind of character.
First of all, it was very clear on the page. It didn't take a lot of me trying to write and create something new. It was basically trying to understand what was on the page first. Tracy has a different meter, a different rhythm, which became really significant to defining who Joe was for me. The things he doesn't say as much as what he does say. It was an exercise in introversion for myself. So much with Joe, for the first 2 acts anyway, is going on underneath the skin, behind his eyes. And then it was defining, almost the emotion less of Joe. He was a very practical, precise, deliberate businessman, basically. Very clear with his rules, very clear with the consequences of it if they're not followed. And he has a need for order and structure. And you see when he becomes destructive, it was clear to me that he's becoming destructive because he's trying to call order to the situation where order has been lost. There was also, it helped me defining what Joe didn't have, and it sort of hints to what his attraction with Dottie and his whole family is. Joe does not, and who knows how long it's been since he has had family. So that was sort of my tempo, my things I followed. I knew I could stand solidly on, and as my springboard. As far as a place to go and myself, it wasn't really like that for me to imagine what I'd be like, what part of me wants to could do this. Joe's so pragmatic. It was you see there's scenes in the film where it is emotionless. It doesn't, like he says, he doesn't. I don't care if it's your mother, your sister, your father, what have you. It's not about those. Those are semantics. He has a job to do. It's clear that he does it. And so to approach that practically, and as a guy who, has a bit of that 1,000-mile stare, a guy who is a loner, who is a guy who lives on the fringe of society and is a misfit himself. That's where he and Dottie sort of find each other, because they're two outcasts. But again, to start off with, it was really clearly written, and then it became clear to me early on that Joe was not a guy who ever raised his voice. Speaks quietly. He's not there to make friends, not there to get along with anyone. And outside of this household, like I said, he's pretty much probably a guy who's just on his own and has been on his own for a long time.
In the climactic scene of the film, he is kind of spinning out of control, but what's interesting is that he starts to play the part of the director of the scene, or the ringmaster of this kind of, grotesque family. It's horrifying, but at the same time it's hilarious. And I'm curious as to whether you have to kind of, in your calculus as an actor, both of you have to kind of weigh up how much, when is it going to be funny, when is it going to tilt into being appalling. This was a really difficult scene to film, I imagine, and I wonder if you could talk about the degree to which you were conscious of when it would be funny, and when it would stop being funny, and when it would start being funny.
I personally did not know what moments would be funny in watching the film. What I think is hilarious, and I actually snuck in the back for the last 50 minutes. Anytime you cut away to Mansell, it's hilarious. And he's the straight man that's watching the joke, or the violence, or the afterwards. In a way, he's the audience, and his reactions, whether he's just straight facing or whether he's gagging and puking, are funny. We knew that when Joe goes over after this is all gone down and sits down next to Ansel and says, how we doing, bud? How we doing, guy? That's just funny. I mean, you don't play it funny, but okay, Joe's going over to share a beer and a cigarette with the husband of the woman that he's just done what he did with it. To play that sincere is seriously funny. But it didn't pick out really moments to go, oh, this is... And even that scene, I know for me, what would we do? 1, 2 takes? And it is Joe. He's become the ringmaster of that, and the way he gets there, as you notice, he sort of, those people that do what he does, let the person sort of hang himself. He lets the group, he leaves the truth in the asper's kitchen. He just asks the right questions and does enough math in his head where he lets them sort of, as I say, hang themselves, where they know that there's no way out.
Is he having fun, and for both of you, is working on a scene like this fun or is it really tough?
I wouldn't say that last one was particularly fun. I think it's interesting is that listening to Matthew, when he describes Joe's kind of an exercise in introversion, in a way, for Carla, it was an exact opposite, an exercise in reaction and in, she's such a feral animal to me, like an animal, and as controlled as he is, it was an exercise more, that was fun, I guess, just kind of not editing my...
letting go.
Well, it's letting go, what's the word? Getting trained it now. Just your gut reaction things, even though, she was quite calculating in everything going on, until, as Matthew says, Joe kind of gives her enough rope for her to hang herself. But, you never play it for comedy, it's an amazing thing. I get that moment always. That's the only moment when he's like, how you doing, guy? I had to stay in my place, because that line killed me, and I just couldn't even be there, because I was in such a different place, But also the scene with the, this it's fucking funny, But you never really played for that.
Well, I had to wonder if that detail was in the play, or whether that was one of the inventions of the director.
It was not in the play, but I wrote it into the screenplay. And you write a little visual gag like that in the screenplay, and you're like, I don't know if this is, it's a question of timing. Is this going to play or not? Are they going to be able to sort of make this visual gag work? And it's never failed. And the timing of it was perfect.
To come back to that final scene, did you shoot it in sequence in order to kind of build the arc for the actress? And how many days would a scene like that take to shoot, given it's really demanding? I guess that's a question for anyone who wants to answer it.
I'll take a shot at it.
You take a shot.
It's either 21 days or 22 days, the whole film.
The whole shoot.
Yeah. But no, didn't approach that scene any differently than anything else. We never, I guess I probably made a point to not give that any more importance than anything else.
I think if anything, I remember, for me, I remember us talking about it for a second, not that we rehearsed a lot, but it was just like, personally, I was like, I don't want to think about it, I don't want to discuss it, because I wanted to kind of not be in my head, and it was just kind of, where do you want me, what was the, choreography, and we just kind of did it, lived it as it was going. It felt more raw that way.
That's the way we did the whole film. I would just give them the choreography, and we'd talk about the characters before we did. We didn't rehearse, and we didn't do more than one take, unless a light fell into the shot, or the camera fell off the tripod, or we were out of focus. I had no interest in doing more than one take in this or any film, because I'm interested in spontaneity. And they were able to provide that at all times. I'm interested in spontaneity more than perfection. They knew their parts when they came in. They knew what the script was, they knew what they had to do, and I just gave them the choreography, and we never rehearsed. And frankly, the main thing that drew me to make a film like this is I can't stand what's being made by the major studios, to be honest with you. It's just not for me. It is for millions and millions of people, but it isn't really for me. This film was about something. It is funny, God knows, but as they say, you don't play the humor. But it's also real. We all know these people in some form or another. They don't go around in spandex, they don't fly around with a cape and shorts and, heal the problems of the world. And you can't find too many films like that. There are a few occasionally that slip through. And some are very wonderful and touching, like The Beasts of the Southern Wild. which is a beautiful and touching film. And occasionally there's something that's on the nose, dark, and outside the mainstream like this. And so I'm attracted to that. I don't imagine a lot of guys were beating on your doorstep to make this film.
Considering I wrote it 20 years ago, no.
Well, at my age, that's not long ago. No, we had a great cast. So things augured well to make this picture the way we made it. If you couldn't cast it with people like this, you could never do it. And, you know, it wasn't that easy to get the film financed or anything else. But, well, the easiest part of it was shooting it because the cast was there. They were on the spot at all times. That's good writing. This guy's as good as it gets today. Tennessee Williams, I mean, he was great for his day, and a lot of his plays have lived. And right now, you know, this man has cut his own path. As probably, you know, if he's not the best, he's one of the best playwrights in the English language today. And screenwriter. He's also a damn good actor. You know, he's playing George in Virginia Woolf on Broadway this fall.
Which he's amazing in, I actually saw it.
Gina saw it in Chicago. It's a Steppenwolf show. And they're bringing it to Broadway this October. I only mention that because I want to get free tickets to opening night. And I think I might have just won the contest. Yeah.
For the actors, I think, you know, Billy has such a reputation as an actor's director when you think about the performances that he's had in films over the years with Ellen Burstyn and The Exorcist and Gene Hackman and Roy Scheider and The French Connection. I mean, from your perspective, can you say something about, from your experience, what it is about Billy that you think is special as a director for an actor?
You know, personally, I remember when the first time when we actually discussed the character, and I have to say, just psychologically, so many times I feel like, oh, I want to go here, 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 and I get into this level, and a lot of times you talk to directors, and they don't really want to know what you're talking about. They're like, yeah, that's great, just, you know your stuff, and I'm going to be shooting it. Billy, hands down, is one of the most amazing, I could have the conversation that I didn't have to edit myself, and he was right there with me, and he'd get excited, and I feel like sometimes, you know, I feel like if you're going to go for something or a character, you go for it, and a lot of times, you know, people get scared. They're like, oh, maybe that's, you know, going too far. Maybe that's pushing the envelope a little bit. I mean, with Billy, there really is no envelope. There's no envelope. You know, as long as it's truthful and authentic and real to the character. So I found it a pleasure to, it just made me as an actor feel free and not have to worry about, is she gonna think this? And that part's fantastic.
Thank you.
True. Yeah. And you know, one take, maybe two sometimes, and maybe we did a couple of shots in here where the light fell. It's in the movie still. I don't know.
Could be.
It was on the edge of framing. I've worked with people that are very concerned about, you know, the exact frame, and if the framing's not right, you'll hear cut in the middle of the take. And as an actor, you hear cut in the middle of the take, and your first thing you do is, what happened? What went wrong? Nothing. It was just the framing we didn't quite have it right. That really stops a certain momentum. It was obvious from the get-go that the utmost importance for Billy working with us was our performance. He may be in the back behind the monitor when the shot's starting, but when he's talking to you and it happens immediately after the take, it's very visceral. He's in your face, and it's almost as much as what you feel as what you're actually hearing. And we had a nice shorthand, and it was, show me, don't tell me. Show me. Do it. Now. So one thing he does is he gets the entire cast and the crew up to the speed and the tone and the emotion that the scene needs in it. Very safe place to work. Because it's fun to go to work and not get out of that bubble until they say, okay, that's a wrap, let's go home. Many other people you can work with where there's a lot of breaks through the day, and you have to step out of your bubble. The exit and the re-entry is what becomes fatiguing. Working for 12 straight hours and actually laying it down on film and not leaving the set, that's good fatigue. That's the right kind of sweat you want to break as an actor. And try new things, he was wide open for that. He also would catch, we brought up the last place we just talked, the lighter, little things that you'd be doing. So it's not just saying exactly what's on the page, let's get that. He's looking for little nuances, then all of a sudden you go see the film and you say, oh, he didn't just see that as nuance, he actually made the lighter almost Joe's personal soundtrack. And what does that mean? So eyes were always open, infectious enthusiasm, not a lot of adjectives, never straight at you, get it going, and you didn't have to ever worry if he was mincing words with his direction. You never really, and again, you never had to worry if he was trying to be safe. There was never an idea when she says not in the envelope. There was never, you know right away Billy's not going to say, well, let's bring this back to convention. Let's make this safer. And that's kind of unchanged an actor, and if we were doing it well, we move on to the next one. Oh, and a wonderfully blasphemous sense of humor.
Yeah, his stories were awesome.
And then sense of humor. Billy is funny. He likes funny. There's hardly anything that'll, I don't know, you can't go too below the belt and you don't find some humor in it. And that's a great part of his humanity too.
That cost me $100. What you just heard. Cash. A large part of what they're saying has to do with the fact that it's written so well. You struggle with stuff if it's not written. I've been on pictures where we stop and say, what are we going to do here? This isn't working. Let's figure this out. And you actually sit down and rewrite or rethink or whatever the hell it is. This we didn't have to rethink or rewrite anything. It was all there. I don't know where it comes from. He seems like such a mild-mannered guy, God, what must be going on? I don't even want to think too hard about that. But really, how many plays have you written?
5.
Yeah, I guess I've seen them all. And they're all different, and they're all really strong. They're not all the kind of things that I would make a film out of. The 2 films that I've made of Tracy's earlier works are things that I found very cinematic. And if they're not cinematic, I don't give a damn. I was just interested in them, and I thought they were great.
Can you talk a little bit more about that exactly? Because I think a lot of people would look at this raw material and think it's not cinematic at all, because both of these pictures, Bug and Killer Joe, basically take place in one location. And that seems like a daunting challenge for cinema, and yet the movies do seem incredibly cinematic and constantly reinventing the space. And you started out making movies like this with The Birthday Party and Boys in the Band that were also sort of fixed location play adaptations. What is the secret? What is cinematic about this kind of material?
My first film was with Sonny and Cher. I was hardly in one place. But I'll tell you, the films that I've only made, I think, about 16 films in 45 years. And they're from different sources. Some are plays, 1 or 2 were novels, a couple were based on actual things that had happened. So they're from different sources. But what all of the films I've made, I think, have in common is claustrophobia. Even The French Connection, which has no sets at all, was done in the streets, in real police stations, on bridges, wherever. It's a claustrophobic film. You stay very tight to the characters, and they're trapped in their own skin. The Exorcist, about a third of it is in one room. It's in the girl's bedroom before she becomes possessed and after. It's in one place because most of us are trapped in one place. I know that I am. The people in this story are victims of their own dreams. You know, they all have a dream. Charlotte has a dream. She wants to get out. Joe has an idea of family that seems so far removed from what he can achieve as a family man, but he has this dream. To me, we haven't said that in New York, and New York critics are supposed to be more intelligent, aren't they? Aren't they? Mister, I'm talking to you. Are they supposed to be more intelligent? Okay. What this script is really, to me, what this story is a modern Cinderella story. No, what are you laughing at? No, you know, to me, I told this to Tracy, and he gave me the same blank stare he's giving me now. I'm not sure he knows what this story is about, so be careful. But every little girl, when she's really small and young, wants to be Cinderella. She wants to escape from her, from her parents, even if they're good parents. She wants to get out. She wants to find her Prince Charming. And every little boy at a certain age wants to be Prince Charming and take Cinderella out of her dark circumstances into a palace where they live happily ever after. And I always saw this story, she's got the wicked stepmother, it's not intentional, but that's what the metaphor was to me, that she wants to find her Prince Charming, and she does, except he happens to be a hired killer, which has happened to a lot of you, I imagine. I imagine a great many of you sitting out there were looking for Prince Charming, and he turned out to be a lunatic or something. But nevertheless, the myth persists, and so that's how I see the film, as a kind of a kind of a contemporary fairy tale was the metaphor I always had. I don't know if we ever talked about anything like that, though. That's not something you would say to an actor. He'd look at you like he looks at me. Like he doesn't. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going for.
What?
You know what?
Which part?
We just talked about it. It is going to be one heaven of a sequel. Joe and Dottie.
I'd love to see that. But you always, as a filmmaker, and I think as an actor, probably as a writer, consciously or not, are working out of some metaphor. Some deeper sense of the material without emphasizing it. Huh? I was talking to you at that time. That's why I went on. But
it's what makes it universal.
What, dear?
It's what makes it universal.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think it is universal. We talked about, someone asked Matthew earlier, how accurate is this Detectives? And your answer?
So, some people that I was around from childhood and then late teens and then 20s, I've been around some collectors. I guess that could be a real nice way of saying hitmen. And they were definitely very soft-spoken. They were very gentlemanly. They did not want to ever be in the forefront, never on the front row, never under the spotlight. Always looked you in the eye, even though maybe behind a pair of shades at times. But unassuming, very unassuming. And it was that stillness in them that it became very clear to me, that's the last guy you want to mess with in the room. Or if you do have to mess with somebody, it would be, I hope he's on my side. But very cordial. And underneath there, obviously they do things like Joe does. There's obviously some sort of peace. But very, very, very manners, gentlemen. And that was actually what made them much more scary in my experience.
At the very end of the film, the last few shots, it seems as though Joe is genuinely, suddenly showing a real emotion, maybe for the first time in the film. And Dottie has just killed her father, and she's aiming the gun at Joe, and we see her finger move we see her finger move to the trigger, and that's, I think, the last shot of the film. So is Prince Charming going to make it out of the house, or you know?
Who knows? But one of the things that Tracy and I have in common is we don't want to tell you what to think about this picture or any picture. You know, it's up to you. If it gets to you in any way, to take the film home with you. Don't you forget this film for the moment. Don't you enjoy that more when you can take the film home with you and think about it, talk about it, argue, disagree, instead of just watching something like Opium for the Eyes, you know, where it's all handed to you. This is what it's about. You know, when the guy comes on the screen, he's going to triumph over adversity. You don't know what's going to happen in this story. Wouldn't you say? Listen, if you can get anything out of it, go ahead. I haven't been able to get this guy to tell me nothing. You know, I mean, for how long have we been working together?
A few years now.
A few years now. He's never told me nothing. So, when you're talking about meaning and stuff, you better ask him. Because I don't know what the hell to say. You know, I could be way off the wall with Cinderella. But,
Well, I think it is time to let the audience take a crack, you guys. So, do we have questions out there? I'll repeat them. Yeah. You.
First off, Mr. McConaughey, I really have to remind you of Dallas Buyers Club.
yes.
Speak up.
So long for that. So I was wondering, Night of the Hunt, is that a big influence on this?
Is Night of the Hunter a big influence on this movie?
And he thanked you for getting the Dallas Buyers Club name.
Been working on Dallas Buyers Club. Been working on that for about 4 years. So we're finally going to get it in September.
And Night of the Hunter.
Night of the Hunter, not specifically. I didn't go do a lot of research, or really, I didn't measure any of my choices off of something that I'd seen before. Again, what I read, I didn't even know. I never saw a play. Never saw a play. I didn't even know it was a play when I read it. But there was such identity in the text. And then when it clicked for me, my imagination ran so far, I decided to stay there, and I had plenty where I almost didn't want to have any other opinions. I didn't want to know how Joe was played before, who had done it before, what choices did they make. And it's not always the case. If my imagination hadn't run to some spots that really felt clear and helped define the identity of this guy for me, I would have maybe been looking for some inspiration on it. I didn't, and that's testament first to the text, and then two, that it made sense at a certain time. But again, I didn't know what I was going to do with it, and I did a lot of work to get to the other, break on through to the other side. But once I got there, it just clicked. I have a goal with each role, and it has not happened in all of them, where you get to a point where you put a blindfold on my man, put him in a spaceship, helicopter, whatever, take him wherever you drop him off, take the blindfold off, he can be that guy. I can be that guy. And I got to that place with Joe, and that's a wonderful place to be, isn't it?
Yes.
I was wondering, what advice would you give the writers and filmmakers and actors?
Ooh.
Could you be more specific? What advice would you give to writers, directors, and actors?
Well, I suppose my advice would be to produce your own stuff. I think a big mistake that people in the arts make is when they sit around waiting for the phone to ring and somebody else tells them it's okay, they can start work now. There's no excuse to not be working. You can always be working. You can always be writing. You can always find a theater to act in. You can always find, you can borrow somebody's camera. You can go steal money to buy film or get a digital camera. I mean, there's no excuse not to be making something. I don't think real artists are dependent upon other people telling them it's okay, you can start working. That's my first piece.
Gina?
I totally agree with Tracy. I think that's a very smart answer. And to that, I would just also add, just follow your passion. figure out really what really excites you, and you'll know. Your body will tell you. And, you know, I just find for me it's never worked to say, well, I'm going to do this one so I can do that. Just, you know, especially today, just do it.
What was your question? Because it's hard to hear out there. Was it, what advice would you give to an aspiring writer?
Writers, filmmakers, actors.
Oh, well, you have to have ambition. Number one, you have to have a lot of luck, and you have to have the grace of God. You know, I mean, that's it. But the last two you can't do too much about. You can make your luck to some extent if you do what Tracy just said. And when I started making films, we could not afford a camera. You had to go to work for somebody who had a camera. Now you can go out and buy a camera, not only shoot something, but put it on YouTube or some website, and guys will actually see it. People in Hollywood see this stuff, and they say, hey, maybe this guy can do a commercial, or, a low-budget feature film. You can get work today in ways that were not possible when I started. It was always, Orson Welles referred to a film crew as, the greatest electric train set a kid ever had. And also, it was called the one-ton pencil. It's a collaborative medium. If you want to be a painter, you're standing alone in front of a blank canvas. A writer, you're looking at a blank sheet of paper. A novelist is looking at a blank sheet of paper. The filmmaker works with a lot of other people, so you've got to be able to communicate. That's very important. Communication skills are big time. And then, I didn't mention talent, because I don't think it's necessary. There's so many people making a fortune on garbage, No, seriously, that you say anybody could have done that. But you must have ambition, luck, and the grace of God. Without those things, it's not going to happen. Ambition's very key.
My
Yes.
2 cents would be, go ahead.
No, carry on.
All right. Joel Schumacher, I worked with on Time to Kill, told me this, and I thought it was great. I remembered it. He said, Matthew, there are no help wanted times in Hollywood in this business, and the guards at the gates are not there to keep you in. True. And what I would say, take risks. Don't do it unless you're willing to shake hands and be able to go to sleep at night with just enjoying the process and not have an endpoint where you've got to get to having a certain amount of money or getting a certain amount of recognition. Enjoy the process. You got to do it. As Billy said, go make stuff. As Tracy said, go produce something. There's no excuse for not doing that. And then I think the other one is, I hear a lot of people ask that question and they go, well, I think I want to be one. Nah, not going to happen. You said too many words. Don't act like one. Be one.
Yes.
Friedkin, I like what you had to say about claustrophobia forming all of your films. Something I noticed as far back as my favorite sorcerer.
Why are you laughing at that? What the hell was funny about that? He held up. I gave him a copy to hold up.
I think they're laughing because he brought it here for you to sign it
for you,
afterwards.
sure.
A bit more about what draws you to that feeling.
Maybe it's the way I feel.
Okay.
I think a lot of us, I can only speak for myself, spend a good deal of time trying to get out of our skin, to escape from our darker impulses. I think that goes on a lot. It was why I was drawn to Harold Pinter's work before Tracy's. Harold Pinter wrote about the silences between the lines. What was going on in the pauses. And Harold Pinter's work all addresses the idea that it's not that we don't communicate with other people, it's that we communicate too well. That we all know what the other person means when they say this. We all know what's behind the attitude, but we sometimes don't respond like we know, but we know. You know, you generally know what somebody else thinks about you and how you feel about them. But in order to preserve civilization, we spend a lot of time mincing words and not saying what we mean. I would sometimes like to just figure out how often during a day I actually say what I mean to somebody instead of just the normal social things that get you through the day.
We have time for just a couple more questions.
Why? What's going to happen then?
Because that guy over there is
Cinderella's
really
going to
giving
turn
you
back
time.
into a Cinderella.
Oh, I see.
Someone from the back. Yeah, all the way in the back.
I'm sorry.
Who was the hardest character?
They were all difficult to cast, and I could have gone in many different directions, and there is a movie, God, that brings the cast together. And Matthew has said that when he first read the script, he thought it was terrible. In your own...
I said, I don't want anything to do with this place, with this world. And I remember throwing it in the trash, and I remember going, man, I'm going to take a hot shower. We had a steel brush. That was my first reaction. It took 48 hours to shake. It stuck with me. But I was appalled by it. I mean,
Well, the thing is, I saw Matthew on a television talk show, and he was being himself. He wasn't playing a part. And it occurred to me, it was like a snap. Because I was thinking, about some of the old grizzly bears, that you would cast for something like this. An evil-looking dude, or, somebody who looked degenerate like Billy Bob Thornton. But then I saw Matthew on this interview show, and it occurred to me that would be the way to go. To have a guy that's so charming, so smooth, so attractive, that would be the centerpiece of this character. Unexpected. Now, most of what Matthew has done, has been to play what I just said. Charming, attractive, and because he does that so well, that's how he was cast for many years. I believe that is now changing, but he had to take control of his own career to do that. Because if you look as good as him, or me, sorry, if you look like this guy, they want you to show up and look like him and make love convincingly to the leading lady. And you can make a lot of money doing that, but they don't need you to really act, although that stuff is harder than this, isn't it?
it's not always easy, but I love that. It's true. Someone asked me the other day, they said, if you roll into comedies and the action adventures and they do this, it's got to be so much more difficult. Actually, the Wedding Planner was tougher than And no, there's something about them, I like to bring this up, that you can't discard those romantic comedies.
No.
It's easy because if you do, the challenge is to keep them buoyant, to keep them on the surface, right? If you dig down in your humanity and hang your hat on reality, what you get to do is something like this. It's an 8-minute movie. It's over. The girl comes in and says, hey, why the guy's playing poker over here? I'm having a bad day. Get him out of here. And in the romantic comedy, the guy goes, yeah, guys, go on out the back door. I don't know what's going on. Well, in real life, you go, time out. Hang on, honey. Hey, excuse me, guys. You go back and you say, was it a bad day? What's going on? Why are you coming in like that? Well, that scene where you work it out and end up, the guys do get to stay and play poker. It doesn't exist in those. So, you gotta keep it, if you drop your anchor in the romantic comedy, you sink the ship. In something like this, you drop your anchor and just keep digging.
In terms of Gina, I had spoken to a number of really fine actresses about this part. And the first question was, how are you going to handle the sexuality and the violence? And that was the last question. I knew Gina is one of the most courageous actresses in America today. And that's what it takes to play a part like this. Great skill. But, sometimes not always apparent because she's so damn beautiful, really. She's just so beautiful that you forget how good she is. But she's also courageous. Thomas Hayden Church is on the nose. Emile Hirsch to me, has qualities of like a young Montgomery Clift, vulnerability and a certain sweetness about him that works against his character. Juno Temple I had never heard of. I didn't know who she was. I was going to go with one of 3 other actresses whose names you would know. And Juno sent in, and this goes back to the point of that gentleman's question. She sent an audition tape, unsolicited, to my casting director with her 10-year-old brother playing Joe. And she looked and sounded great. Now, I didn't know how authentic her accent was. It seemed right to me, but I'm not from Northeast Texas or the Oklahoma border. But her accent seemed right. And so I told the casting director to just hire her. Go ahead. And then she came to meet me. And she's got this thick British accent. You need subtitles to talk to her. She sounds like Michael Caine in Batman. And really, with a nice lilt. But she just did this, and I asked Matthew and Thomas to tell her if she went off at any point with her accent. Now, the real guiding... What's that?
I'm glad you didn't cast her brother.
I didn't. Her brother actually was off camera, but he was pretty good. And really, I know you got to leave, and we'll get that guy. But the point is, the guiding spirit over this is what this man wrote. The thing that brought us all together, and why we feel so close to this material is what came from his imagination. And I'm glad you folks came here tonight to share it with us. I really mean that. It is a very difficult picture. I know that. But it's something that we all take great pride in. We love doing it. I wish, I could get material like that for the rest of my life. And it just isn't out there. I guess you've made a couple of films recently where it's really good stuff. Off the wall, unexpected. But there isn't a lot of that. Gina, do you want to say something about any of this?
Like what?
Not your fucking Merkin. I don't want to hear anything about that.
Who is bringing up the Merkin?
I know.
Billy's just obsessed with this Merkin.
No, I am, because you go to that, so I thought I'd give you the feed line so you can get off stage with it. A guy will be asking a question about Stanislavski, and she'll start talking about the Merkin.
Someone was going to ask me that question because I was going to hand it over to you.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was planning.
Well, I threw it back. Anyway.